In this video, we'll discuss the story that occurred in 2017 in the U.S. state of Pennsylvania. On June 28, 2017, eyewitnesses started calling 911 and reporting a car accident on one of the highways. When police arrived at the scene, they found a Chevy Malibu car that had veered off the road. Unfortunately, the driver, 18-year-old Biance Roberson, did not survive. However, her death was not an accident, as it seemed at first glance. Biance Nicole Roberson was born on October 17, 1998 in Pennsylvania. She graduated from Bayard Rustin High School in Westchester with straight A's. As a student at Rustin, Biance was a member of the Black Student Union, received several awards, and was on the honor roll throughout her senior year. She received a 4-year merit scholarship to Jacksonville University in Jacksonville, Florida, aspiring to major in criminal justice to become an FBI forensic agent. Over the years, she was a Girl Scout, a cheerleader, and played basketball. She took lessons for flute, violin, clarinet, and guitar. She was also an artist. Biance, who resided with her mother and her maternal grandmother, Josephine Perry, was eager to experience the freedoms and challenges of dorm life, her mother said. Unfortunately, all her plans collapsed. On June 28, 2017, Biance, her mother, and her grandmother were shopping at Walmart. Biance was preparing to move to Florida and looking forward to a new chapter in her life. Having bought everything, Biance and her family went to the parking lot. Each of them got into a separate car. They planned to meet at home later. Her mother and grandmother had other things to do, and Biance immediately went home. She had to drive about 10 miles. Biance knew this road well, yet this car ride was the last for the young woman. About 10 minutes after she left the Walmart parking lot, eyewitnesses of the accident started calling 911. The first responders went to the scene right away. The driver of the Chevy Malibu was Biance Roberson. The paramedics could not help her. She was pronounced dead at the scene. At first glance, the injuries on Bianca's head indicated that she had received a severe blow when the car veered off the road. Many people driving along the highway at the time of the accident stopped near the scene even before the police and ambulance arrived. After interviewing eyewitnesses, the police found out one crucial detail. One of the witnesses claimed that Biance went off the road after a collision with a red pickup truck, which then fled the scene without even stopping. "I hope it's not Biance." That's what the grandmother said to herself as she drove past the car crash scene, intending to meet her granddaughter at home. She had no idea that the cause of the traffic she got stuck in was the crash involving her granddaughter. By the time Bianca's grandmother returned home, 2 police officers were already there to report the car accident that claimed her granddaughter's life. Bianca's mother, Michelle, couldn't believe all this was happening to her. The death of a child is perhaps the worst thing that can happen to parents. "Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine anything like this," said Michelle, a nurse in Delaware County. After losing her son, 22-year-old Michael James Rowley, to a heart condition in 2013, she truly believed her pain would lessen. Instead, it has doubled. "I don't even know who I am right now. I am just existing," Michelle said. "They were my breath, my reason to get up. I'm the mom of no children now." Michelle Roberson has lost her second child, and all this is heartbreaking. She said she did not leave the house for quite some time and constantly cried. Divorced since 2006, Michelle and Rodney Roberson managed to become amicable co-parents, thanks to Biance. "Our divorce wasn't pleasant," Rodney admitted. "Biance didn't like the way I was talking to her mother, and she set me straight. Because of the love we had for her, it made everything calm down." Biance was devoted to family, and she especially loved being her daddy's girl. "If I had a favorite, Biance was it," her father said. Even more than looking forward to being on her own, her parents said Biance was happy to be moving closer toward achieving her dream of being a forensic specialist for the FBI. She was focused on her future and nothing was going to get in her way, said Bianca's father, proudly adding that his daughter had received a 4-year merit scholarship for Jacksonville University, one of 4 schools to which she applied, and one of 3 where she had been accepted. She also was accepted to Coastal Carolina and the University of Georgia. Detectives requested CCTV footage to verify the version that Bianca's car veered off the road after a collision with a red pickup truck. After all, if the cause of Bianca's death was a collision with another car, then it wasn't just an accident. It was a crime. If this was the case, the police needed to find the culprit. But the truth they soon discovered was even more shocking. While the detectives were waiting for the footage, there was another turning point in this case. Everyone thought Bianca died after going off the road and hitting her head. But during the autopsy, forensic experts determined that the cause of her death wasn't a car crash. They found a bullet in Bianca's head. It radically changed everything. What initially looked like an accident and then a collision with a red pickup truck was actually death from a gunshot wound to the head. After receiving the autopsy report, the detectives went to meet Bianca's family. They had to tell Bianca's parents that her death was not an accident. It was an even bigger shock for everyone, especially her mother. Michelle was confused. Why would anyone do such a thing to her daughter? The family could not name a single person who could wish Bianca harm. She had friendly relations with everyone. Robersons needed answers, and investigators were doing everything possible to find the person responsible for Bianca's death. The detectives did not see anything suspicious while reviewing the footage from cameras at Walmart that Bianca and her family visited on the day of her death. They analyzed their every move from when Bianca and her family exited their cars to when they left the parking lot. The detectives ruled out the version that someone who was at Walmart could have chased Bianca and then fired a fatal shot at her. After all, while at Walmart, she did not quarrel with anyone. They just bought everything they needed, loaded everything into Bianca's car, and left. It could mean the reason for Bianca's death was something that happened while she was driving along the highway in the direction of her house. "We put all the bags in Bianca's car," her mother said, referring to the 2009 Chevy Malibu the family bought for Bianca from CarMax for her 16th birthday. Bianca didn't ask for a lot, but when she did, she asked for big things, like a car, her mother said, adding that Bianca had picked out the car when she got her permit. "She got everything she wanted," Michelle Roberson said. "I don't call it spoiled, I call it loved." But Bianca was willing to work for things she wanted. She got her first job at McDonald's at the age of 15. After 2 weeks, she traded in fast food for a dietary aide position at the Whitehorse Village retirement community in Delaware County. "I have a stack of letters and cards from the residents there who loved Bianca," Michelle said. Soon after, the police obtained the traffic CCTV footage. There were no cameras at the place where Bianca veered off the road, but there was one about a mile away. Let's look at Google Maps. Here is where Bianca went off the road. As you can see, 2 lanes merge into one at this point. When the investigators watched the recording, they saw something that confirmed the story about Bianca having some conflict situation with the driver of the red pickup truck. The footage showed their cars driving side by side. Here, they're approaching the place where the 2 lanes merge into one. Perhaps the conflict arose because one did not give way to the other. Knowing the outcome of this confrontation, the investigators assumed that the driver of the red pickup truck could be the one who fired the fatal shot. Unfortunately, the footage was of poor quality. Neither the license plates of the pickup truck nor the driver's face were visible. However, from that moment on, the driver of the red pickup truck became the primary and only suspect in the case of Bianca Roberson's death. Detectives had to find out the identity of this man, but all they had at that moment was a blurry image. None of Bianca's family members knew anyone who owned a red pickup truck. The police again talked to those who were at the scene of the incident and those who called 911. None of them saw the license plate of this car. Friends and strangers, young and old, too many to count, have reached out to the Robersons in support, beginning at a vigil held 2 days after her death. They've heard from teachers who had known Bianca over the years. "Bianca changed me and how I was going to teach," one educator told Michelle. "Bianca was our save-the-world child. If a parent put a child out, Bianca would sneak them into our house," Michelle said. When she confronted her, Bianca would say something like, "Mom, wouldn't you want someone to do the same for me?" Bianca once saw a car accident and asked her mother if they could stop to help. If she saw anyone dining alone, her first instinct was to invite them to the family table. While watching the recordings from cameras located further from where Bianca's car crashed, the investigators established in which direction the pickup truck was moving after the incident. They needed a higher quality recording to know the car's brand, model, and license plate. The police also appealed to the media to spread information about the red pickup truck, hoping the public would help identify its owner. Detectives established that after an incident, the driver of a red pickup truck turned towards Powley Pike. They started going around houses and various shopping facilities in the area, searching for cameras that could have captured the pickup truck. They managed to find one surveillance camera, and the footage was of good quality this time. While analyzing the recording, detectives saw a red pickup truck driving along the road about 5 minutes after witnesses called 911 and reported an accident involving Bianca Roberson's car. Yet it was not possible to see the license plate. Moreover, it was unclear whether it was the same car or another one that fit the description. While the investigators continued to look for other recordings and go from one door to the other, there was another breakthrough in the case. 2 days after the incident, a woman contacted the police, saying she had seen the car they were looking for. Moreover, she even saw the face of the person sitting behind the wheel. This woman said a red pickup truck overtook her, stopped at the Powley Pike intersection, and then turned left. This information was crucial to the investigation because it narrowed the search circle. Moreover, it meant that the pickup truck from this footage wasn't the car they were looking for. It was just a similar-looking truck. The woman who contacted the police helped the forensic artist to create the suspect's sketch. She described him as a white male, aged 25 to 35 years, with brown hair and a stubble beard. The police hoped that someone would recognize this person and inform them about it. They showed the suspect's sketch to Bianca's family. However, they didn't know anyone who looked similar to the sketch. The investigators also began to assume that Bianca's death could have been a hate crime. Knowing that the red pickup truck turned left at this intersection, the detectives went around the establishments and houses on this street, hoping to find a good quality recording that could answer some of their questions. Soon, they found what they were looking for. The owner of the house, located less than half a mile from the intersection, provided the police with a recording from the surveillance camera aimed at his driveway. Having determined the approximate time it would take to get there from the crime scene, the police quickly found the needed car. Although the footage had better quality than the previous one, its angle of view prevented the law enforcement officers from identifying the car or the driver. The police made a lot of effort to find another recording from the camera located at a closer distance, and luck was on their side. While they couldn't see the license plate, they did discover the car's distinctive features. Namely, the car had a sticker on the right side window, a vertical dent on the passenger door, and damage to the hood. These distinctive features could greatly simplify the search for this car. The police wanted to speed up the process, so they appealed to the public for help through the mass media. They offered a $5,000 reward for information that could help find the truck or its driver. The investigators were sure that someone would definitely recognize this particular vehicle. 3 days after Bianca Roberson died, A lawyer called the police station and said he had a client who wanted to turn himself in, mentioning the latter's connection with an incident that resulted in the death of 18-year-old Bianca Roberson.
This incident happened this past Wednesday at approximately 5:30 p.m. Bianca Roberson, 18 years old, recently graduated from Westchester Ruston High School, on her way to Jacksonville University. Her whole summer in front of her, her whole life in front of her, a loving family. She was driving down Route 100. Route 100 is a two-lane highway, the Route 100 spur, just a couple miles from here, and it merges into Route 202. And where it merges, it goes from 2 lanes down to 1. That's the same merge that people in the southeastern Pennsylvania make thousands of times every day. All across the region, people do that without problem. But last Wednesday, as Bianca was merging down from 2 lanes to 1, there was a man in a red pickup truck also merging down. And they jockeyed for position. And he wasn't happy. So he pulled out a gun and shot Bianca in the head.
The driver of the red pickup truck turned out to be 28-year-old David Desper from Pennsylvania. He showed up at the police station with his lawyer. Desper refused to testify but agreed to a search of his house. The man also told them where his pickup truck was. Desper was arrested and charged with taking the life of Bianca Roberson. The police found the pickup truck at the place indicated by Desper. Stickers on the side windows, the damage, and the rims left no doubt it was the vehicle the police were looking for. During a search of Desper's home, investigators also found a gun the man used to shoot Bianca Roberson in the head. The police were sure they found the culprit. However, the motive of this crime remained unknown. Over 800 heartbroken family, friends, and community supporters gathered at the St. Paul's Baptist Church in the borough of Westchester, located 25 miles west of Philadelphia, on July 7th for her homegoing service. A church banner proclaimed patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control. During the funeral service, among those who paid tribute were her brothers, officials from Bayard Rustin High School, where she had just graduated, the chief admissions officer at Jacksonville University, which she was to attend in the fall, and friends. What emerged was a portrait of an extraordinary young woman. Speaker after speaker extolled her brilliance and virtues. In providing the eulogy, Pastor Wayne Croft Sr. linked the shooter with the likes of George Zimmerman and Michael Dunn. Zimmerman, who shot black teenager Trayvon Martin to death in Florida in 2012. Zimmerman was acquitted of murder in 2013. Dunn shot Jordan Davis, another black teenage male, to death in Florida in 2012. A verbal encounter over music from the car the teenager was in escalated when Dunn fired shots into the vehicle, even as it was driving away. He was convicted and sentenced to life plus 90 years in prison. Whether Bianca's murder was road rage or racial, it doesn't matter right now to the black community. All we know is that we lost another brilliant young black star. Another good sister is gone, said the pastor. At the trial, which took place in September 2018, they asked David Desper to explain what was the motive for the crime he committed. Instead of answering this question, he asked for forgiveness from the Roberson family. The idea of facing their daughter's alleged killer was not something either of Bianca's parents was looking forward to doing. Rodney had ordered T-shirts with the image of Bianca's face on the front for family members and friends to wear as they gathered at the Chester County Government Services Center. They also had bracelets inscribed with the words, "Bianca Roberson, a rose in God's garden," and a banner that read, "Justice for Bianca Nicole Roberson, who was murdered on Wednesday, June 28, 2017. I don't know what my reaction will be when I see him, the guy who held the gun that shot my daughter. I know I'm not going to do anything stupid," Rodney said of Desper. "He just took her dreams. He didn't have that right," Michelle said. "I can't get her back. I need to get her back, and I can't. I need to comfort her and I can't. I'm her mom and I can't do that. And he's still here," she continued through more tears. "He gets to talk to his parents, to hug them. He is 28. She is just 18, just a baby." The prosecutor suggested that the reason for the traffic conflict was that Bianca did not give way to Desper when the two lanes merged into one. Then he rolled down the window on the passenger side and pulled the trigger. Realizing the consequences of his actions, Desper fled the scene, left his pickup truck with a friend in Pennsylvania, and tried to escape to Delaware. But when his sketch and the distinctive features of his pickup truck appeared in the news, he decided to hire a lawyer and turn himself in. The police studied his social media accounts and interviewed his friends but found no evidence it was a bias-motivated crime. Therefore, they didn't charge the man with a hate crime. District Attorney Hogan added there was no indication that we're aware of that this was a race crime or a hate crime. Many begged to differ with that assertion. Before the sentencing, the defense called Desper harmless and an almost juvenile 28-year-old who in his spare time played with cars. They called him a big kid and argued that Desper essentially gave the government the case because he turned himself in. The defense said Desper was driving home when a car came up on him and startled him. He took the gun and fired it. They said there is no monster or menace. If you're a 28-year-old man operating a motor vehicle with a loaded firearm, you're not a big kid, objected prosecutor Chris Miller. It turned out Desper's own mother had shared a Facebook post about police looking for the man who murdered Bianca Roberson. She'd later learn it was her own son. Wendy Desper said she has love for Bianca's family and prays for her. "I'm sorry for what my son did," she said as her son sobbed. Rodney Roberson struggled to speak through tears as he addressed his daughter's killer. "My questions for the defendant are simple. Why in God's name did you shoot my daughter? Because she was young? Because she was black? Because she was a girl? Because you wanted to go first on the road? Because you had a bad day?" "All my dreams for Bianca were coming true, until the day that the defendant murdered my daughter," he added. "All I have left of Bianca is my memories." David Desper pleaded guilty to third-degree deprivation of life. The court sentenced him to 40 years in prison with the possibility of applying for parole in 20 years. Judge Anne Marie Wheatcraft brushed away tears as she announced the sentence, telling Desper, "I don't believe you were afraid. I believe it was anger." The 20 to 40-year sentence County Judge Anne Marie Wheatcraft imposed is the maximum for that grade of homicide. Desper attempted to appeal the sentence, but his appeal was denied. In this video, we'll discuss the story that happened in 2007 in the U.S. state of Kansas. 18-year-old Kelsey Smith mysteriously disappeared after going to the store. What happened to Kelsey attracted the media attention, and CCTV footage helped to solve this case. Kelsey Ann Smith was born on May 3, 1989, in Overland Park, Johnson County, Kansas. Kelsey was one of 5 children of Greg and Missy Smith. She graduated from Shawnee Mission West High School on May 24, 2007, and was looking forward to attending college in the fall. People knew her as an outgoing and friendly person. Her sense of humor did not leave anyone indifferent. She played the clarinet in a marching band. Kelsey worked at the AMC movie theater. On June 2, 2007, she had another shift. That morning, her mother, Missy, was leaving for a friend's wedding. Unaware that her family's life would irrevocably change and that she would never see her daughter alive again, Missy said goodbye to Kelsey before leaving. Kelsey went to work by car, which her parents gave her. Her morning shift ended without any incident. After work, she met her father and her sister Lindsay. Together, they went to an amusement park. It was a wonderful day, which unfortunately did not have a happy ending. At about 6 p.m., Kelsey decided to go shopping. She asked her sister if she wanted to keep her company, but the latter refused. Therefore, Kelsey left the house alone and drove to the nearest Target department store. Before leaving, she told her father, Greg, about her plans and said she loved him. Greg was a policeman who loved his children madly. The man taught them basic self-defense techniques and to always take safety precautions. About an hour later, Kelsey called her mother, who was going home from a friend's wedding, and said she was shopping. They had a short conversation and agreed to see each other at home. After some time, John, Kelsey's boyfriend, arrived at Smith's home. John was one of those guys who inspired Greg's confidence. He often spent time at their house, and everyone believed their relationship would eventually grow into something more. That evening, Kelsey went to the store to buy a gift for John. The latter tried to call her but couldn't get through. He went to her house, but she wasn't there. Greg started calling his daughter, but she did not answer. After many unsuccessful attempts to contact Kelsey, Greg became worried. As a policeman, he tried to remain calm, but as a father, he was getting more concerned with every new minute. Greg started calling his daughter's friends, but no one knew where Kelsey might be or why she wasn't answering calls and texts. Kelsey wasn't like her peers. She always called her family, even if she was a few minutes late. After some time, John and Kelsey's sister, Lindsay, got into their car and started driving around the area, hoping to find Kelsey's car. What if she got into an accident? Maybe the police pulled her over for speeding. They first checked the parking lots at various stores. In one of them, they saw a Buick belonging to Kelsey. She told her father she was going to the Target store. However, they found her car near another store. John checked the car, but Kelsey wasn't there. Lindsay called her father and said they found Kelsey's car. Greg told them not to touch anything, as the car could be a potential crime scene. After all, if this was the case, it was crucial not to destroy the evidence possibly left there. Greg contacted the police and reported his daughter missing. The police launched an official investigation. The detectives immediately arrived at the place where John and Lindsay found Kelsey's car. The first odd thing that Greg and everyone else noticed was that her car wasn't in the Target parking lot. It was next to another store, in a poorly lit part of the parking lot. The detectives carefully examined the car, hoping to find anything helpful to finding Kelsey. But the only things they found inside were a package, gift wrapping paper, and the gift the girl bought for her boyfriend, John. There was nothing inside the car that would indicate a crime. There were no signs of a struggle, no traces of blood, nothing like that. The keys were under the driver's seat. But then detectives saw something strange and suspicious. They saw some fabric that looked like a t-shirt sticking out of the trunk. With anxiety in his heart, Greg opened the trunk. It was empty. Kelsey was not there. She bought her gift for John at Target. It meant she was there at some point. Forensic experts thoroughly examined the car and found a thumbprint on the seatbelt. It did not belong to Kelsey or anyone with access to the car. Kelsey had just graduated from high school and was going to attend the University of Kansas, planning to become a veterinarian. She was always an exemplary student. Kelsey was a very ambitious and cheerful girl. She had her whole life ahead of her, but now she had mysteriously disappeared, and her family desperately needed answers. The police continued their work. However, apart from an unidentified fingerprint, there was no evidence to indicate that her car was a crime scene. It seemed like someone just left the car in this parking lot. The detectives went to Target to get new information about Kelsey's disappearance. The CCTV footage could give answers to some questions. By the time the officers arrived, the store was already closed. It was about 11 p.m., but they still found the person who let them in and showed them the recordings. The police spent several hours at the monitors, tracking Kelsey's every move. But her trip to the store was ordinary. She found the necessary goods, paid for them, and went to the parking lot. There were no signs that something was wrong. While in the store, Kelsey did not quarrel or talk with anyone. She was calm and left there alone. But here's what seemed strange. After Kelsey got into the car, she, for some reason, drove in the opposite direction from her house. The recording's quality was low, and it was impossible to see any details. Thus, several more important questions arose. Why didn't Kelsey go home as planned? Did she drive the car herself? Could she have been hiding of her own free will? Before dawn, Greg and Missy went to the police station, where detectives asked them various questions. Being a policeman, Greg knew that this was a common practice. When investigating such cases, detectives need to eliminate the possibility that someone from the family may be involved in the crime. He knew that the sooner he and Missy answered the questions, the sooner they would stop being suspects, and the sooner the police would focus on finding other leads. The couple answered all the questions. Kelsey's parents weren't the suspects. The next person the police wanted to check for involvement in Kelsey's disappearance was her boyfriend, John. After all, Kelsey had spent most of her free time with him in the last few days, and he was the last person she had contact with. They needed to know where John had been before he went into Kelsey's house and told her father he couldn't contact her. Partners are often directly related to what happened to their soulmates. Therefore, the detectives decided to pressure the guy. They started asking him the same but differently phrased questions to see how he would react and whether he would change his story. It lasted about 2 hours, but John was adamant that he was not involved in Kelsey's disappearance and that everything was fine in their relationship. He answered all their questions and allowed the detectives to examine the contents of his phone. The officers were inclined to believe that John was probably not lying and that he had nothing to do with Kelsey's disappearance. But still, the detectives didn't cross him off the suspects list. Kelsey's family could not just sit and wait, so they started their unofficial investigation. Greg knew perfectly well that if someone had abducted his daughter, then with each new hour, the probability of finding her alive decreased. Greg, Missy, and John gathered people ready to help and divided them into groups to search the area. Each volunteer took a bundle of printed missing person flyers and walked around the needed streets, asking if anyone had seen Kelsey. Greg also called radio stations and asked for some airtime. He asked to tell about his daughter's disappearance and that anyone with any valuable information should contact the police or the Smith family. An hour after the radio stations reported Kelsey's disappearance, TV channels told about Kelsey in the news. It increased the chances of finding Kelsey as soon as possible. Her classmates joined the search. They went from one door to another. Perhaps someone from the residence heard or saw something suspicious, or something that did not arouse suspicion at first glance, but could help in the investigation. Any information was crucial. One of the questions the police had to answer was where Kelsey was for 3 hours from when she left Target until John and Lindsay discovered her car. To answer this question, the investigators again turned to the surveillance cameras. The parking lot where they found Kelsey's car belonged to another store. Fortunately, there were cameras there too. However, due to the recording's poor quality and insufficient lighting in that part of the parking lot, the detectives could not see anything that would allow them to understand where Kelsey had gone. They saw how her car drove into the unlit area of the parking lot, after which the headlights went out. Soon after, the driver got out of the car and left. But it was only a silhouette of a person. It was unclear whether it was Kelsey or someone else. The police were disappointed. As for Kelsey's family, they believed it was a good sign. The family members knew that she had no reason to hide. The most important thing for them was to find Kelsey alive. The police had no new leads yet, so they decided to look at the recordings from Target's surveillance cameras again. But now the detectives used better monitors. They retracked Kelsey's every move while she was inside the store but didn't find anything suspicious. Everything seemed normal. Kelsey bought the necessary goods and left the store like any other customer. Parking lot? What could have happened there that led to Kelsey's disappearance? Even though the recording's quality was poor, the detectives still found a suspicious detail. After Kelsey left the store, she went to the parking lot to her car and opened the back door to put the purchased goods. Then, she went to the driver's door. At that moment, the investigators saw a blurry spot flashing after her. The police believed that someone attacked Kelsey when she got into the car, which meant they were dealing with an abduction. The investigators watched the recording over and over again, but the viewing angle and the quality of the recording did not allow them to see the whole picture. It took about 15 seconds before the door closed and the car left the parking lot. Perhaps her car turned in the opposite direction from her house because she wasn't the one who was behind the wheel, or someone threatened her. Detectives didn't want to, but had to tell Kelsey's parents that their daughter was most likely the victim of an abduction. All that was at the police's disposal was a video recording of the moment of the abduction, but it was impossible to see the person who did it. This person was wearing a white t-shirt and dark shorts. Therefore, the investigators again turned to target CCTV footage, but this time, they hoped to see someone wearing a white t-shirt and dark shorts. And then they saw something that they had not noticed before. A man in a white t-shirt and dark shorts followed Kelsey wherever she went. He kept his distance so Kelsey wouldn't suspect anything, but he was always there. There was no doubt that this man was following Kelsey. When Kelsey approached checkout to pay for the goods, he unhurriedly headed for the exit. He obviously left the store first to wait for her in the parking lot. Soon after, the police managed to get a clearer image of his face. It wasn't of perfect quality, but they hoped someone would identify this person. The police asked for help from the community to identify the man. The number of calls with possible leads exceeded 1,000. It took a lot of time to check this amount of data. Detectives tried to filter out the information that probably had nothing to do with the case. The police interrogated several people who looked like this man, but none of them was the one they needed to find. The breakthrough in this case happened after the police tracked down Kelsey's phone. After she disappeared, her phone was active in a wooded area near Longview Lake, Missouri, about 15 miles from Target. By this time, the FBI had joined the investigation. They organized the search in the area where Kelsey's phone was last active. About 200 people took part in it. Kelsey was found 4 days after her abduction, and just 45 minutes after her cell phone company provided information about her cell phone activity. That's worth paying special attention to. We'll come back to this issue later. Unfortunately, she was dead. The criminal tried to hide the traces of the crime, leaving her body under the leaves and tree branches. Kelsey was naked, which revealed the motive of this crime. Her belongings were a few feet away from her. During the forensic examination, the experts determined that Kelsey died of strangulation. The criminal used her own belt to take her life. The police had to tell her parents the worst news of their lives. The news about Kelsey's death was heartbreaking for her family and friends. The criminal was still out there, and the police needed to find him as soon as possible because they feared he might kidnap someone else. All the police had at this investigation stage was CCTV footage. Therefore, the investigators decided to study them again. Knowing that someone abandoned Kelsey's car in the parking lot at 9:17 p.m., the officers decided to look at what was happening in the Target parking lot during the same time. They saw a man running up to a dark pickup truck parked in the parking lot, getting inside, and quickly driving away. It was at 9:22 p.m., but it could have been a coincidence that had nothing to do with this case. It was already dark when the pickup truck left the Target parking lot. But what if the person driving that car arrived there during daylight hours? The investigators rewound the recording, and it confirmed their assumptions. The blue pickup truck pulled into the Target parking lot at 6:55 p.m. Kelsey drove into the parking lot a minute later, parking next to this pickup truck by some evil coincidence. Perhaps that's when the criminal saw her for the first time. The police released images of the pickup truck and a man following Kelsey, hoping someone would identify him. And it brought results. 2 people called the police station, saying they knew the man in this picture. One of the callers identified himself as his colleague and the other as a friend. Both callers gave the same name, Edwin Hall. He was 26 years old, owned a pickup truck, was married, and had a son. Looking up his past, the police discovered that whilst Hall had no adult convictions, he had a juvenile record after threatening his adoptive sister with a bread knife at 15 years old. If Hall was the one who abducted and took the life of Kelsey Smith, then he could have tried to hide after his image appeared in the news. Therefore, the police went to his home right away. When the police arrived, they saw Hall putting things in his car. He was going to leave with his family, but the police got to him faster. They arrested Edwin Hall and took him to a police station for questioning. He told detectives that he had nothing to do with the disappearance and death of Kelsey Smith. He said he didn't even know who she was. But everyone knew he was lying because the CCTV footage from Target left no doubt that Hall was following Kelsey. When they told him about the recording that could refute his words, he admitted he watched Kelsey because he liked her legs. But Edwin continued denying any contact with Kelsey after she left the store. He agreed to provide the police with his DNA sample and fingerprints so that they would exclude him from the list of suspects. Hall was sure he had left no trace, but he was wrong to think that. His thumbprint matched the one found on the seatbelt in Kelsey's car. This information directly connected Hall with the abduction and death of Kelsey Smith. After all, there was no other explanation for his fingerprint being on the seatbelt. Hence, no matter what Edwin Hall said, the police knew he was the one who ran up to Kelsey in the parking lot. After the detectives informed him about the fingerprint match, he decided not to wait for the DNA result and confessed everything. To avoid the death penalty, Hall agreed to tell all the details of the crime he committed. He said he liked Kelsey when he saw her in the Target parking lot. Hall started following her while she was shopping and then waited until she came to the car. After this, he pulled his gun and attacked her. Hall pushed her into her car and drove her to a wooded area outside the city. There, he told Kelsey to undress and eventually ended up taking her life because he was afraid that she would tell everything. Then Hall hid Kelsey's body under branches and leaves and drove back. After leaving Kelsey's car in a nearby parking lot, he went to Target, where he previously parked his pickup truck, and then drove home. After the death of Kelsey, Missy and Greg Smith said they noticed the majority of violent crimes were geared toward children and young adults. "We wanted to prevent this from happening to others," Missy Smith said. With that goal in mind, they created safety awareness seminars. Greg Smith was a police officer at the time of his daughter's death, so he used the training methods he learned on the force and applied them to a civilian setting. The Kelsey Smith Act passed in Kansas in 2009, and similar laws exist in 23 other states. However, in 2016, it failed to pass the U.S. House of Representatives. Members of Congress who voted against the bill cited privacy issues in allowing law enforcement to access information without subpoenas. The Smiths point out only location would be released, so texts, pictures, and phone calls would be off limits. For 13 years now, the couple has been pushing for change in Congress. One thing keeps them going. "It's Kelsey. There's no doubt about it. It's Kelsey," Greg Smith said. She was 18 years old and a recent high school graduate when she walked out of a Target in Overland Park and disappeared. It took 4 days for a cell phone company to release location information from her phone. Once it did, police found her body within 45 minutes. The Smiths dedicated their lives to passing legislation to expedite that process for other families. "It would have saved 4 days of hunting for her and not knowing if your child was alive or what her outcome was," Missy Smith said. "If law enforcement determines there's an emergency situation, the Kelsey Smith Act requires wireless communication providers to turn over a device's location information. It also provides immunity to the phone company for doing so." Bottom line is, it's a tool for law enforcement. We live in a technology world, And why not give them every tool they need to find somebody? Greg Smith said. The legislation says the information should be released if officers assert the phone was used to call 911 in the preceding 48 hours, or if there's reason to believe someone is at risk of death or serious physical harm. In September 2008, the jury found Edwin Hall guilty on all counts. During the trial, he apologized to Kelsey's family and said he was very sorry. The court sentenced him to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. During the 16 years since her death, Kelsey, who would have turned 34 on May 3rd, has become the face of a movement to force telecommunications providers to be responsive in emergency situations, especially as GPS and cell phone technology has continued to improve and evolve. In this video, we'll discuss the events that occurred in Germany in 2016. The story of Maria Laudenberger, a 19-year-old resident of Freiburg, caused a huge resonance in German society and raised many questions not only about the work of the local police, but also about the entire government of Germany. Maria was born on December 6, 1996, in the family of Clemens and Friederike Laudenberger. According to the German press, both her parents were lawyers. Moreover, her father was also a high-ranking official in the European Union. In 2016, Maria was a student at the medical faculty of the University of Freiburg. In her spare time, she worked part-time in one of the urban centers that provided assistance to immigrants. On the night of October 15th to 16th, 2016, Maria attended a party organized by the medical faculty. She had a good time with her friends, and when she started to get ready to go home, it was about 2:30 a.m. Maria lived on campus, about 3 miles from the university where the party was. After saying goodbye to her friends, she went outside and rode her bike towards the campus. It was at 2:37 a.m. At 8:20 a.m. on the same day, someone who was jogging along the river Dreisam saw a woman's body in the water near the shore. Eyewitnesses called the police and an ambulance. However, there was nothing the medics could do to help. They identified the victim as 19-year-old Maria Laudenberger. She never made it to her dorm. A jogger found her body about a mile away. During the forensic examination, the experts established that the cause of Maria's death was drowning. At the same time, someone also tried to strangle her with a scarf, which the police found at the scene. That scarf contained a sample of male DNA, apparently belonging to the perpetrator. The police also found out the probable motive for the attack on Maria. The forensic medical examination established that someone forced the girl into intimacy before her death. The police formed a special commission of 68 investigators to solve this case. In addition to the DNA on the scarf, the police found several black hairs with bleached ends, 7 inches long, in the bushes near the crime scene. Importantly, this strand of hair contained the roots, which allowed the authorities to obtain another sample of male DNA. This sample matched the one on the scarf used to strangle Maria. However, the police could not establish the identity of the person to whom the DNA samples belonged, since there was no information about him in the databases. On November 8th, the police offered a reward of €6,000 for information that could help solve this case. Thanks to several individuals, the reward amount soon increased to €35,000. The police questioned more than 1,000 people, including the ones who attended the party, which was the last for Maria. At the same time, more than 100 people voluntarily provided DNA samples for comparative analysis. Most of the people who provided their DNA were those who attended the party. Yet, none of these samples matched the DNA found at the crime scene. Residents of Freiburg were shocked after details of Maria's death appeared in the press. People bought up all the pepper sprays in the city as they understood that the criminal was still at large. In addition, cases of harassment of women have become more frequent in the city. A few days before Maria Laudenberger's death, several refugees harassed a young woman in the same area. Another similar incident occurred 2 weeks earlier. Self-defense courses have never been so in demand in Freiburg before. Many people went to local sports centers to learn how to defend themselves. Meanwhile, 25 additional officers started patrolling the city to increase security. People are afraid to go outside alone at night, Mayor Dieter Salomon said. We cannot put up with this situation. 25 additional officers may seem like a drop in the bucket, but for a city with a high crime rate, it was a signal that the authorities were finally interested in Freiburg's problems. The police checked all possible leads. However, the decisive moment in identifying the perpetrator was the hair and scarf found at the scene. Knowing that the man they were looking for had long black hair with bleached ends, the police started analyzing the recordings from many city cameras. Looking through the CCTV footage from the city tram, they saw a man with a similar hair color and length. The man had an undercut, short hair on the side and back, and longer hair on top. This recording was from the night of October 16th at 1:57 a.m., 40 minutes before Maria left the party. The suspect got on a tram near the university. After about 20 minutes, he got off at the final stop, which was less than a mile from the place where a jogger later found Maria's body. As the police reported, while on the tram, the suspect was bothering two girls, but they eventually managed to rid themselves of his attention. On December 3, 2016, almost 7 weeks after Maria's death, the police arrested a suspect, 17-year-old Hussein Kavari. Initially, the authorities considered him an immigrant who came to Germany from Afghanistan. Yet, during the investigation, it turned out that he was not 17 years old and that he was not a citizen of Afghanistan. Kavari entered Germany without an ID card in November 2015. When crossing the border, he said that he came from Afghanistan and that he was born in 1999. Hussein Kavari stated that he was 16 when he entered the country. He did not have any documents confirming or refuting this. Due to his stated age, Germany granted him asylum as an underage unaccompanied refugee. They sent Kavari to live with a foster German family in a picturesque town near the Black Forest, where he went to a local school, learned German, and received government benefits. Such a trick with age fabrication turned out to be a common phenomenon, which at that time gave an advantage not only when applying for asylum, but also in case of breaking the laws. After all, the punishment for juvenile offenders is less severe. We'll return to the suspect's age later because it's just the tip of the iceberg in his biography. After the police arrested Kavari as the main suspect in the Maria Laudenberger case, his image appeared in the press. While the German media tried to hide his face, the TV channels and newspapers of other European countries did not do this, publishing a non-blurred picture of his face. The lawyer from Greece, Maria Eleni Nikopoulou, saw photos of the arrested young man in the media and recognized him. She defended him in court in the spring of 2013. At that time, he was charged and found guilty of a life-threatening attack on a young student on the island of Corfu, Greece. Kavari robbed a 20-year-old student and threw her over a cliff. The girl flew about 25 feet down and, by some miracle, survived, thanks to the bushes on which she fell. She spent 17 days in the hospital and underwent 3 surgeries. The police arrested Kavari, and when the girl recovered, she identified him as the man who attacked her. However, Kavari himself did not understand the reason for his arrest, stating that she was just a woman when talking to the police. The court sentenced a young asylum seeker to 10 years in prison for theft and attempted life deprivation. What's important here is that during the trial, he claimed that he came from Iran and that he was born in 1996. But when he entered Germany, he claimed to have been born in 1999. So here's the question. How did Hussein Kavari get to Germany in 2015 if he was sentenced to 10 years in prison in Greece in 2014? And here's the answer. He was released on parole in October 2015 due to prison overcrowding in Greece. He violated his probation by not regularly reporting to a police station, coming there only once. They put him on the wanted list, but it only applied to Greece. At that time, the borders were open, and Kavari, along with thousands of other refugees, went to Germany, where he fabricated his age to impersonate an underage, unaccompanied asylum seeker. After Kavari was arrested as a suspect in the Maria Laudenberger case, his fingerprints were compared with fingerprints from the crime scene in Greece. This confirmed that he was the same person who had attacked the woman in Corfu. After learning all this, Germany had many questions for the Greek authorities. Since the police did not initiate a search for Kavari via Interpol, he entered Germany unhindered. Germany's Federal Minister of the Interior, Thomas de Maizière, called it gross negligence and was outraged that Greece had not shared information about this refugee. The suspect would have been caught at the border and checked by the German security authorities if we had received information from Greece. All this happened in a reprehensible way. We will have to talk to the Greeks about this process, Maizière said. While the police in Germany and Greece were trying to sort things out among themselves, ordinary residents of Germany, including the ones from Freiburg, demanded the authorities to take action against uncontrolled immigration. In response to the discontent of residents, Freiburg's Mayor Dieter Salomon stated they shouldn't use Kavari's origin as a case against immigration policy. He proposed to treat it as a separate incident. At the same time, the Alternative for Germany party called Maria Laudenberger a victim of Angela Merkel's welcome culture. Unfortunately, Maria Laudenberger's story was not the only one of its kind. On December 27, 2017, in Kandel, a refugee from Afghanistan, 15-year-old Abdul Dawodzai, attacked his classmate, 15-year-old Mia Valentine, with a knife in broad daylight. The motive for the attack was that Mia stopped talking with him. As a result, she died in the hospital, and police arrested Dawodzai. The girl's parents doubted that Dawodzai was 15 years old and demanded to find out his age. They determined his age by X-rays of his arm, collarbone, and teeth. The expert concluded that Dawodzai was at least 17 years old and most likely around 20. Still, they tried him as a minor, meaning the maximum penalty was 10 years in prison. On September 3, 2018, the court sentenced him to 8.5 years behind bars, which provoked the anger not only of the girl's parents, but also of the entire society. It is important to note that a year after his conviction, Dawodzai was found dead in his prison cell. He had committed self-harm, and doctors had not had time to treat him. On March 12, 2018, an underage unaccompanied refugee from Afghanistan, Ahmad, attacked 17-year-old Mireille Bold in her apartment in Flensburg. Mireille and Ahmad dated for 2 years, but when the guy started controlling her every move, the girl broke up with him and started a relationship with another guy. As a result, she died from 14 stab wounds. At the trial, Ahmad claimed that he was 17 years old at the time of the attack, and that they should try him as a minor, which implied a maximum sentence of 10 years. But the examination showed that Ahmad was not 17 years old, as he claimed, but about 29. The judge agreed with the examination results, deciding to try Ahmad as an adult. The court sentenced him to life imprisonment. However, under certain conditions, the German law on life imprisonment provides for the right to early release after 15 years. Authorities also urged not to forget that exactly the same crimes are committed by Germans. When the police said that the perpetrator was a refugee, the tension in society started to grow. Maria's parents, Friederike and Clemens Laudenberger, refrained from condemning speeches. Instead, they founded the Maria Laudenberger Foundation in memory of their daughter. This foundation brought them a civic award of 20,000 euros from the Federal Association of German Newspaper Publishers in Berlin. If at some point my children or grandchildren ask me what I did to help the world develop in the direction that I thought was right, I at least want to say that I took advantage of the opportunities I had." This quote from Maria served as the basis for creating this foundation. It supports students of the University of Freiburg in difficult life situations. For example, first-year students who do not have enough financial resources to study, especially refugee students. Friederike Ladenberger said she wants people to remember her daughter's name not only because of a terrible act, but also because of her life. Clemens Ladenberger stated, "The crime against Maria has deeply shocked people in Germany. Together with other events, it brought several political issues to public discussion. As Maria's parents, we do not want acts of hatred or cold-blooded contempt in our society to cause hatred and incitement to others. Otherwise, the destructive spiral threatens to undermine the foundations of social coexistence." As parents, they considered expressing their Christian beliefs, but decided not to speak publicly. We believe that our restraint, our interest in an objective discussion of these complex political issues ultimately serves us well. By creating the foundation, they wanted to encourage people to use their educational opportunities and individuality to find their place in society. When our life became full of darkness, pain, and confusion, a deep sense of gratitude settled in us. "Thanks for the gift, for our Maria. This attitude helps to control fate," said Friederike Ladenberger. "We felt like God had given us the strength to cope with this fate. He is with us. He accompanies us. We realized that we now have a new life task, to cope with the violent death of our daughter, and we will cope. We've been saying this to each other since the beginning, and we keep saying it now. And the feeling of gratitude that we talked about helps us to prevent all other feelings from arising so strongly that they take over," said Clemens Ladenberger. Now, let's get back to Maria's case. In addition to DNA evidence, the police now had Hussein Kavari's confession. The trial began in September 2017. Kavari admitted that he forced Maria into intimacy and took her life. Moreover, the man also confessed that he lied about his age. He did not tell the court how old he was, but only confirmed that he was of legal age. While under oath, the forensic dentist said the defendant was probably between 22 and 29 years old. About 8 months before the attack on Maria Ladenberger, Kavari had his tooth extracted during a routine dental procedure. He kept it as a souvenir that the police found while searching his apartment. According to the expert, one can establish the person's age by the annual rings in the tooth's root. That's how the forensic dentist knew Hussein Kavari's age ranged from 22 to 29 years old. The method is safe and gives accurate results. X-ray examinations, for example of wrist bones often used to diagnose aging, are considered relatively imprecise. Therefore, senior prosecutor Eckhart Berger called the dental examination crucial evidence in establishing the defendant's age. Kavari claimed that his father died many years ago in Afghanistan. However, the police established that his father was alive and lived in Iran. The court got a clearer picture of Kavari's age after the prosecutor contacted his father by phone. According to the father, his son was born in Iran on January 29, 1984, which means he was 32 years old at the time of Maria's death. As a result, they tried him as an adult. During the trial, he said that a couple of hours before the attack, he and his friends had consumed a large amount of alcohol and took some prohibited substances. After partying with his friends, he got on a tram and drove to the area where he later attacked Maria. In her spare time, Maria worked part-time at the Immigrant Assistance Center in Freiburg. She tried to help people who found themselves in a difficult life situation. By some evil fate, she died at the hands of one of these people. As the crime sparked public anger and disgust, social media users posted sarcastic thank you messages to Chancellor Angela Merkel over her liberal policy that brought more than 1 million refugees and immigrants to the country. During the trial, prosecutor Eckhart Berger had reminded the two jurors sitting alongside 3 judges that on trial is a criminal offender and not Germany's refugee policy. Kavari sobbed in court as he read out a statement of apology to the victim's family. He claimed he had nightmares about Maria's death every day. "I beg your pardon. I want to apologize to the family of Maria. I wish I could undo it," he said. "What I have done, I am sad for from the bottom of my heart. I live with the agony of what I did, and this torment destroys my life by and by." At the trial, Hussein Kavari told everyone about his challenging fate. He described his journey from Iran to Turkey, Turkey to Greece, and finally through Serbia and Slovenia to Germany. He spoke about life among the ruins, eating from garbage in Greece, theft, and the use of illegal substances and alcohol, while staying in a foster family in Germany as an underage refugee. In court, he stated that he suffers from psychological conditions and has nightmares and frequent insomnia. Among other things, his stress was due to worries about his homeland. "I have many problems. I have a lot of problems," Kavari said. During his testimony, he described the night he took Maria Laudenberger's life. According to him, a few hours before the crime, he and his friends drank 2 bottles of vodka. Then he drank beer and wine alone. He also smoked several cigarettes and used illegal substances. He then got on a tram near the future crime scene. He bothered other girls on the tram, and when he reached the final stop, he stole a bicycle there. However, he fell off the bike because he was too drunk. When he saw Maria, he pushed her off the bike and put his hand over her mouth. She started screaming, and he decided to strangle her with a scarf, which made her lose consciousness. According to Kavari, he noticed that Maria Laudenberger was a beautiful girl and decided to take advantage of the fact that she was unconscious. Then he carried Maria into the water, where she drowned. Authorities believe that Kavari moved Maria into the water to destroy the evidence left on her body. Kavari claimed that he was too drunk and had no control over his actions. He said he didn't want it to end the way it ended. Prosecutors disputed his version of events and alleged his actions were premeditated. A psychiatric expert testified that he believed the remorse Kavari displayed was fake, telling the court that the defendant exhibited a great and persistent readiness for violence and warned there was a high risk of him reoffending. Kavari harbored an interest in aggressive sexual practices and a hostile attitude towards women, he said. Moreover, he does not show remorse and compassion for the suffering of others. Maria's parents decided not to attend the trial. A lawyer they hired represented their interests. Maria's father, Clemens Laudenberger, said, "We wanted the most constructive, objective justice possible, but without additional media hype, political statements, and impact on the course of the trial due to emotional statements from the victims, that is, from us." When asked by a journalist if they had any desire to meet face-to-face with the criminal, Maria's father replied, "We kept this question open. In any case, it was unclear from the very beginning whether we would stay away from the process from beginning to end. But during the discussion, we asked each other whether Maria wanted us to be there, and we concluded she does not want that. Moreover, based on the criminal's characteristics and behavior in court, we increasingly believed we would not achieve anything by this confrontation. We knew it would not help us." On September 22, 2018, Hussein Kavari was found guilty. Presiding Judge Catherine Schenck condemned the extreme lack of empathy of Kavari, who was handcuffed and wearing a black hooded jumper, before reading out the verdict and sentence, which many in the courtroom greeted with applause. The court sentenced him to life imprisonment. As mentioned earlier, the German law on life imprisonment provides for the right to early release after 15 years if the parole board concludes that the convict does not pose a danger to society. However, during sentencing, the judge noted the extreme severity of Hussein Kavari's guilt. It means his early release from prison after 15 years is legally possible, but practically unrealistic.